Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of the Love Encompassed podcast. I'm Phil.
And I am Victoria.
And we're excited for today, and we're going to get right into it. And listen, today's topic is simple because we're all in it. It's the grind of life.
Woo. Say that again. My gosh.
The grind of life. It is tough sometimes.
Life has been lifing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. If you're single or you're married, or maybe you have kids and you're married and have kids, or maybe you're single and have kids.
Yeah.
Grinding in life is tough.
It can be, for sure. I mean, I know there's like the ebb and flows where it's like, okay, it's not as challenging. But when life lifes, it lifes. It's like, can you give me a break just a little bit?
Yeah. It's
let me recover.
I think we've all kind of been in that situation where we kind of feel like it's a one thing that happens after the next. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's good.
Yeah.
Like you got one good thing that happens after the next, and you're kind of like, I'm killing right now. Yeah. Like life is good. Yeah. But then it's like you have compounded things. When it goes bad, it feels like the momentum shifts and it goes the other way sometimes.
It does. And I think it can be hard sometimes trying to stay positive. Ooh. And when that happens, when life lifes, or and I don't know if is it life lifing, or is it just life? Right?
Yeah.
Like life is gonna have the highs and the lows, and you just kind of have to ride that wave. And if we're not careful, and I'm speaking to myself, I think if we're not careful, we can be on this emotional roller coaster because we're instead of riding the wave and being like, okay, I'm gonna stay consistent. And I know it's hard, right? We're human. To stay consistent in our emotions. Sometimes our emotions are on the waves of life as well, but it's like trying to stay positive, have a positive outlook while life is lifing.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because trying to stay positive during the grind can be tough.
Yeah.
Because you're doing the mundane over and over and over. And sometimes it's kind of like lifting weights, right? Or working out, which maybe I do, maybe I don't. Yeah. So, but it's like if you do it long enough, it pays off.
Yeah.
But the grind of getting up every day, working out every day, doing the same thing over and over and over, and then your mind gets involved and you start thinking, is it worth it? Like, is this even paying off?
Yeah, but I think, and that's real. I think those are thoughts that people can deal with and feel. I think the thing that can help, is to not so much focus on, oh man, this is hard. Oh man, I'm tired. Oh man, it's the grind. Just like with working out, that if I stay consistent with this thing, if I stay focused on the goal, if I stay focused on the result that I'm going to get, instead of the hardness of it all, the struggle of it all, if I shift perspective, then I think the weight of life isn't as heavy.
Yeah, so thinking about that, you said something, shifting perspective. So I was thinking, like, if you're married, right, you can get into the grind of, you've been married for a while. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. People talk about it's the roommate phase or whatever it is. It's
or the honeymoon phase has gone.
Yeah. And so now it's like, but if you shift your perspective, I've always said this, is when we've had people that we've talked to, I've never referred to you as the old ball and chain.
No. But I think we know for obvious reasons why.
But when people do that, it's like, oh, that's the old ball and chain.
Yeah.
Or that's just a wife.
Yeah.
Changing your perspective.
Yeah.
And thinking about, hey, the blessing that you had however many years ago, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that blessing that you have changes makes you rethink how you think about your spouse.
Yeah.
Or how you think about it. And I think it's the same way with kids.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh my gosh, they're driving me nuts. They're doing this. They're doing this. Changing your perspective of how you look at the kids.
Yeah.
Also can change everything.
Yeah. And you know, like kind of we're saying the same thing here is, okay, making sure that we're staying positive. Because, like, here's the thing. Not to say, like there's a scale that we judge things by. Like, okay, right. I'm not dealing with that. So it's not, you know, it's not like an awful thing. Or I'm not dealing with that. So it's not like I'm judging someone else's maybe having a harder time and be like, okay, well, you know, I'm better for it. It's not one of those things. I think it's just trying to remain, like we've been saying, positive and keeping our focus on the blessings, like you said, that we do have, and that helping, and that helps to kind of like push us and keep moving forward.
Yeah. How do you do that though? Because, I mean, it's really easy, right? Everybody's always like, hey, you just got to stay positive and remember your blessings. But there's moments you're just like...
I mean, yeah. Heck yeah.
So then how do you... All right, I got to stay positive. Okay, I know everything that people say. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know all these things. But then how are some ways it like... I know for me, sometimes I have to turn on music. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest here, sometimes it's the old Christian music, and sometimes it's not.
Would you like to play, babe?
I'm just saying, I may or may not be a big Tupac fan. So that's all I'm saying. But I'll listen to all kinds of different genres of music. But I think in the moments, though, I can feel myself getting depleted. I can feel myself getting down. I can feel myself getting, the grind has started to take toll. And now I'm like, oh man, I need to do something. And so I'll either play music, or I know sometimes people are like, hey, I talk to myself. I'll be in the car and I'm like, listen, you're going to make it. You're going to, which doesn't, it's not as weird now because people have Bluetooth and everything else. It's probably weird, 15 years ago talking to yourself in a car. But all I'm saying is, it's like, what do you do? What are some ways it can be like, okay, I got to stay positive. Here's the ways I've got to stay positive. Here's what I do.
Definitely. I think it depends on what it is, or how deep I've gone down the rabbit hole. Because sometimes it's like, oh, okay, it is what it is, and I keep it moving, and I'm not gonna trip off of it. Like, sometimes I'll do it that way. But if I linger in it too long, I know sometimes it could take me down in that rabbit hole where I'm like cuddling my blanket in a fetal position.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, like, playing some music. Okay, Victoria, whatever, like worship music or feel good music. Sometimes it's changing my scenery. Go outside for a walk, get some sun. Go to a store and, maybe shop or what was it that you used to call it? Window shop. Whatever it is that, call a friend, go out to lunch with someone. Tell a friend, like, hey, I am really kind of fighting the funk here. I need someone to talk it out, or talk to your spouse. Point. You know what I mean? Turn on a movie that's a funny movie and make you laugh or something like that. The boys
don't turn on like a movie that'll depress you.
No, because we're trying to get out of it, right?
Watching Shawshank Redemption.
I know this may be maybe frowned upon for some, but me and the boys were talking about it the other day about maybe grabbing some ice cream and a brownie. No, don't eat
eating your feelings and your emotions.
No, don't do that. But those are just little things that I like to do. And like you said, talk to yourself. Talking to yourself, I'm like, okay, all right, it's time to get the boxing gloves back on. It's time to, stand back up. It's time to like dig deep and like do this. And let's not forget, like the first thing really that we shouldn't forget is like talk to God.
Right, pray about it.
Lord, I am, not understanding the way things are going right now, but I know you're a good God and everything's going to be okay. And I just need you to help me to like remain positive, or, you know, because I heard someone say this, I don't remember who it was exactly, but they said, what they like to do is, because Jesus loves me, I know it's going to work out for my good. And so it's like in those moments where you feel like, okay, because I know that Jesus loves me, you know, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I actually, and it's something that you helped me with, I had a moment where I was shampooing my hair. And
I helped you with a moment.
Obviously, you don't have any hair to help me shampoo.
That's what it was. It was the moment that I showed her how to shampoo her hair.
But I was shampooing my hair because, I mean, turning 40 this year, there's been a lot of surprises that
it's always a lot of surprises
I was not ready for. Anywho, and so I was shampooing my hair, and I was like experiencing a lot of shedding. And while I'm shampooing my hair and experiencing all this shedding, sorry guys if this is like, Victoria, we don't care, but it was a big thing for me. I'm going somewhere with this. But I was like shampooing my hair and I'm getting a lot of shedding, and I'm like in the sink while I'm shampooing my hair, freaking out like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna have bald patches in my head. Oh my gosh. Like, no shade, boo. No shade. But I'm like freaking out. Baldness. And so I could feel myself getting worked up and everything. And then I said, okay, Victoria, because this is something that I could say you helped me with. Like, okay, babe, like, think of the worst case and then bring yourself back to yourself back. And so I was like, okay, Victoria, listen, it's been a few weeks. That's all it is. It's been a few weeks. And basically I just started talking myself down. Right. And sure enough, I was fine. All follicles accounted for.
Nice. But I think that's the thing is talking yourself. You can talk yourself back down. I'm a big, this sounds crazy, but I'm a big, like proponent of, hey, worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. What's the worst that could possibly happen? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even to the extent, and this sounds crazy and it sounds morbid, but it's like, even if something should happen to me, the worst case scenario is I go to heaven.
I know.
Now, does everyone on earth mourn? Yes. Yeah. And they should. But wow, I am in heaven. And what it does is it kind of balances out my mind a little bit. And I'm a dude who came from a kind of a crazy background in the sense of like I was on drugs and everything else. So staying positive for me is I can look back on my life of being on drugs and being in a bad spot and everything. And I think I'm not there.
Right.
Like I've never forgotten being there.
Yeah. You have
that feeling.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not there. So it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, the problems suck. Yeah, the grind sucks. Yeah, they're doing it over and over, but it's not as bad. Yeah. And that helps me to stay consistent with the things that I'm doing because I'm like, hey, it's not as bad as that.
Yeah.
And if I can come back from that, and I think that's the same way for people that are probably listening right now. Listen, you've been through some stuff. I mean, no doubt you've hit some walls. You've climbed over some walls. Maybe some walls have stopped you. And the grind seems tough. The grind seems hard. It's all those things. But you've made it this far.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it's like you've made it this far.
Yeah.
And I think that to myself sometimes, like, hey, I've made it here.
Yeah.
What happens if I just keep going?
Yeah.
What happens if I just keep pushing forward?
Yeah.
And I tell our boys all the time, there's moments in your life that you're going to hit walls and you have the decision. You either stop at the wall or you figure out a way to climb over it. And I think that's the same way for everybody, right? You hit walls in your life. You hit walls in your marriage. You hit walls being single. You hit walls dating, at your job. And you either have a decision to either say, I'm just going to sit here, or, hey, I gotta think. I'm not one of those people that's really like super into the brain. I know there's people it's amazing. I read studies and hear people talk about it. But the minute you start telling yourself that you can't do something, your brain kicks in and starts saying, okay, we can't do it.
Yeah.
So we can't do it. The minute you tell yourself you can do something, your brain kicks in to try to figure out solutions
Right.
to the problems that you're having.
Right.
So how do you get through a grind? You got to keep telling yourself, I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's, we're big Bible people. We're big faith people. And you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
Yeah.
So you can make it through it, and he will strengthen you while you do it. It doesn't make it easy.
Right.
It just makes it so that you can continue the grind, continue to stay consistent.
Yeah. And I think, essentially what you're saying is to stay positive. Having a positive mindset, having a positive outlook, I think helps because it keeps your joy. Staying grateful, remaining grateful, keeps your joy, because it's one thing to go through life and you're being negative. I feel like it makes it harder versus, staying positive kind of takes the sting out of it. When life does sting, it kind of takes the sting out of it by staying positive and thinking on like, okay, I'm going to keep my joy in it. I remember when I went through a really big transition and I had a salon, and I felt like, God had put on my heart to close the doors and to come back home to be a full-time mom again. And that was really, really hard for me to do. And for a minute there, I kind of went into like a low-key depression about it, because it was something that I enjoy obviously being a mom.
Right.
But it was something that I put so much work and time into. And so I remember during that time, you were like, hey, babe, I love you. And I see that you're walking through this, but it's really important to maintain your joy. I really feel like, you even said, I really feel like God's putting on my heart to tell you to keep your joy.
Yeah.
Because this isn't the end of the world. And here's the thing. We don't know the end of a thing. So while we are in the midst of what we're going through, make sure we keep walking forward so that we can go through, and we don't stop in a season that we weren't meant to stop in.
That's good. That's good. It's what we've had this conversation before, because even with our kids or different people, people are like, yeah, but what if this happens?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy that our minds can say, well, what if this bad thing happens, or what if this bad thing? But then we stop for a second and say, yeah, but what if it doesn't?
Right. Yeah.
Like, think about your lives for a second. I think about my life, and I think about all the things that I thought were going to happen that never happened.
Right.
Like all the negative stuff that I thought was going to happen. I was like, this is going to ruin me. This is over. Like, it never happened.
Yeah. I know. That's so
and you
funny.
spent so much time and you give so much effort to something. What would happen if we just changed our minds and said, okay, I'm going to focus on positive. I'm going to focus on good. I'm going to focus on this. Because I do believe that whatever you focus on in your life will manifest in your life. So if you focus on negative stuff in your life, that's what's going to manifest in your life, right? If you focus on the fact that you're single, you're always single. You're always going to be single. You're never going to have a man. This is how it's going to be. That's what you're essentially going to have in your life.
Well, I think that's because I do believe that there's power in your words, and I do believe that you have what you say, especially when you have the belief behind it. And I think essentially why that happens is because, you're meditating on that, and then you're going to start saying it, and then the next thing you know, you're going to have what you say. You're going to manifest what you say. You're going to manifest what you believe.
Yep.
And so that's why, another reason why it's important to remain in joy, keep your joy. It's important to be positive. It's important to focus on the positive. It's important to shift perspective. All of the things that we've been speaking on, because it feeds your faith and the impossible or the possible in what may feel like an impossible situation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Watching what you say, and we've all done it. Like, you know what I mean? I've done it. So no one's perfect.
No.
So it's like you start saying all the negative junk that happens, and you just feel horrible. Yeah. And that, to me, makes the grind even harder.
Yeah. And if
it's good. It's like that makes it tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher.
Yeah.
And it's like, we talk about communication all the time. Like, you've probably listened to their podcast or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're back on communication again. But communication is a big thing for us. Because,
and understanding.
Yeah, because it is the power of your words.
Yeah.
Like, you're communicating how you feel. You're communicating those things. And that's even to yourself. So how do you continually stay in the grind? How do you keep grinding and stay consistent? What you tell yourself is just as important as what you're telling other people.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it like a coach, there's good coaches and there's bad coaches.
We have experienced both with our kids in sports.
Yes. And so, and I'm so glad you said that, because it feeds into my point. So you have good coaches and bad coaches. And just like, you know, you can see a good coach or a good trainer. When you are trying to do that rep and it's like toward the end of however many reps you've had, or if it's toward the end of a game that you're like really, really pushing hard to win, and you're trying to dig deep to really like give it your all, when that coach or that trainer starts saying, hey, you can do it. You got one more in you. Keep pushing. That's it. You got this. You got this. You're like, okay, it kind of motivates you to keep pushing. And it's the same when we speak to ourselves. Hey, you got this. You can do this. Keep pushing. All right, we can do this. Or you said, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah.
We've also seen the opposite, where they have a bad coach, or you have someone negative in your life and they're fighting and they're kind of pushing through and they're speaking negative things to them. Like, what are you doing? Or whatever the case is. And the next thing you know, you can see on their faces visibly, they're trying to push through not only what they're fighting through, but now the thoughts of what something's been said to them. And it's the same thing when we're going through something, or when life is lifing, and we're feeding and giving the energy to that thing, we start feeling lower, more sad. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I have it in me. Like, think about times past where you spoke positive over yourself and say, hey, you got this, and how it kind of energized you. And sure enough, at the end of the storm, you got it, or God pulled you through it, versus the times where you're kind of going through the funk and you're like, oh, I'm sad and whatever. And it adds to it. And I'm not saying, it's a difference between speaking into it when negative things is happening versus talking to someone and saying, hey, I'm struggling and feeling down and I'm trying to get out of it. I think one result is you're trying to get, out of it, versus the other one, you're just kind of staying in your situation and feeding life into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I would say this, kind of, it is an ending point to it, is I say, be the person that you want in your life. So if it's like if you want encouragers, and I love what you said, it's who you surround yourself with. I want to be a person that people want to be around for positivity. Yeah. I don't want to be the person that people call when they just want to complain. No. Right? I want to be the person that people call because I want that in my life. Yeah. So I want those same people in my life. Yeah. So I would tell you, be the person that you want to be. Be the encourager. Be this. And you're going to need encouragement. Everybody's going to need encouragement. Everybody's going to need positivity. But be that person to somebody else, and you'll essentially get that back in your life. You'll have those right people that are around you.
What do you do in situations where, for our parents that have, kids, where their kids are dealing with life? Yeah. And it could be kids from like super young to young adults or even adults, but your children, I feel like for me that has been, and I know I want to be beating a dead horse, but I feel like that's something that has been like hardest for me. It's like one thing if I'm dealing with something, but if somebody that I love is dealing with something, I low-key want to fight them. I'm not a fighter, but that's just how it makes me feel. Like I'm just like, if anything, I feel like I'm more angry from the situation. I'm more whatever. And it's obviously because I love them, but it's like, okay, Victoria, I can't do that because one, I can't carry it, but also I need to make sure that I'm still present enough to be available to them. So how do you operate in the confines of, okay, I know my child or someone I love is dealing with something, it's bothering me, but not to let it like overtake me?
Yeah, I think you can be sympathetic and compassionate towards things, but you're not your kids. And as hard as that sounds, you're not them. And you can get frustrated and you can get upset and you can get all those things. But at the end of the day, it's not your life. Yeah. And it's like, well, that that coach or that teacher or that friend of theirs is just so rude to them. Well, you can coach them, you can help them, you can do all those things and try to help them deal with adversity and help them deal with all those things. But at the end of the day, they are their own person. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me too as a parent, is because you've lived longer, you're like, no, this is bad. What is about, like, don't do this. Please don't do this. And then they do it anyway. And you're like, it's no different. Really, it's no different than saying, hey, you got to clean your room. Hey, you got to clean your room. Hey, there's consequences to your actions.
Yeah.
They don't clean your room, then you ground them or you take their phone or you do something. There's consequences. It's the same way.
Yeah.
You can't clean the room for them.
Yeah.
Because they have to learn the consequences to actions, or they have to learn, hey, yeah, this sucks. Unfortunately, this develops character and it's tough, but I can't live your life for you.
Yes, I know we can't live their lives for them, but it's still hard to not carry the emotional weight on our heart. They're your kids. It's the same way if they're your spouse or anyone you love. It's hard. So
it's
do
no
you
different
think
if someone's going through something that's a physical thing. If you have a disease or an illness, it's no different. My compassion, you know what I mean? Like, I hate that people are going through that, but it's tough because I can't live that life. I can only be there for you. I can only be an ear for you to listen to. And just what we've been talking about, to stay positive in your life.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes, let's be honest, we have 2 kids that are teenagers, and anything that happens in teens' life is like the end of the world. It is.
Yeah.
Now, we've lived long enough to realize it's not the end of the world.
No.
Right? This is high school stuff that it will eventually fade. Right? But to them, here's what I've realized, is to them, it's a big deal. It may not be a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to them.
Yeah.
So I can sit and listen to them. I can try to be that person that's kind of speaking positive and speaking, hey, it's the grind. You'll get through it. It's going to be okay. But at the end of the day, I've got to pray. I've got to trust God that he is taking care of them the same way he's taking care of me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
You just always want to fight.
I don't always want to fight.
You want to fight teachers, coaches, kids, students.
I don't always want to fight.
Second graders, third graders. You don't care who they are. If they come against your babies, it's on and popping.
Now, disclaimer, I do not put hands on nobody.
No,
okay.
She is not.
It's just how I feel because I just love them so much. I love you so much. And I think it's just anything, even, just with people I care about. I have to just put myself out there. I know that I have to learn how to not let it weigh on my heart the way that it does when something is going on in someone else's life because I know it's not my life. I think I do a good job with being present. And being there for people, being a listening ear, being a support. I do believe I am good at that. Not just because of what I believe, because that's what I've been told as well from friends and loved ones and even my boys. So I know that I'm good with that. I just know that I need to be better at not carrying it like they're carrying it.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough. That's a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
It's a lot of prayer and talking
is.
Victoria down from fighting second graders. That's what that is.
First of all, there's no more second graders because they're teenagers now. Okay?
But you get what I'm saying, though.
Let it go.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. I thought this was awesome.
Yeah.
I love talking about it, and I love talking about the grind and staying consistent and all of those things. But thank you so much. Join us. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, all of those things. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments, do all that stuff. We're so grateful for you joining us today. Hope you loved it. Let us know. Send us DMs. Follow us on Instagram on Love Encompassed Podcast. Send us DMs. And always tell us what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, and we just want to say thank you again. I think you already said it, but thank you so much for those that have been listening and tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. And we don't take this opportunity lightly. We thoroughly enjoy it as well.
So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.